Hey, how funny are the tariffs, dude? I wonder what's going to happen. Right now, I'm recording this on Sunday. Markets open up on Monday. Tomorrow. Well, that might be in 2 days for Americans, but for me, Monday's tomorrow. The markets are going to open. I wonder what's going to happen. All the other countries have like China up their tariffs. All these other countries are like, all right, well, if the United States is going to act insane, we're going to work without them and figure out our own shit. I wonder what's going to happen. And to be honest, right, if I'm like a young person in America who voted for Trump and I don't own a house, I don't have any fucking savings, it's completely understandable that I just would not give a fuck about the stock market crashing. Like I understand that a global financial crisis is bad, but if the stock market crashes real bad and a bunch of fucking upper middle class to millionaire billionaires lose millions and billions of dollars, I'd like, if I'm just like a rural Republican with a normal job, no savings, no house, I'd be like, well, it wasn't looking like I was going to retire fucking anyway. I'm already quite poor. I've got no shot at buying a house. So really my only option is the economy tanking so that everyone who owns 16 houses starts to sell some of them for cheaper than what they bought them. Like, I mean, this is like in Australia, I'm pretty unqualified to talk about the fucking economic state of America. But, in Australia, I'm a homeowner, right? I have a home and I got really, really lucky. It was impossible for me to buy a house. I managed to pull it off because I essentially won the fucking lottery like 6 times in a row. I'm not supposed to own property, all right? As a 32, I bought it before I was 30. Like, that's impossible, right? And I had to win the lottery 6 times in a row, okay? I had to live in one of the only industries that actually benefited from COVID and the lockdown, which was, online entertainers. I also invested in fucking cryptocurrency and a couple of NFTs and like fucking won the lottery with that. And then I also was wise enough to put money into shares after they all fucking crashed, and I managed to pick a couple of winners, right? I won the lottery like 6 times in a row. And I also lived in Australia where they were just handing out fucking free money to certain businesses and like no one else, right? But even then, when I bought my house, I reckon 5 or 6 months after I bought it, I would not have been able to afford it, right? I just got in when even the fucking houses had a little dip, and then they've gone on since. And literally since I have bought the house, the mortgage has almost fucking doubled because interest rates blew up through the fucking roof. And I feel like the only thing that I have done since getting the house is just desperately tried to not lose it. Right? I went through, you guys are the only reason why I still have the fucking house, because instead of, using my savings to pay the mortgage, I had to fucking use my savings to go through a health emergency for a sustained period of time, right? And like, I feel as someone who's incredibly, unbelievably fortunate to have been able to somehow get property, I feel like the whole system is conspiring against me and wants me to, like, I'm not supposed to have it. And I feel like the whole system is like stacked against me to make me lose it so I can go to some fucking investor who already has 3. Like a huge reason why I was even able to get this house was because auctions in Australia were like really fucking difficult to do because of lockdown. So there were like less bidders than normal for a real narrow period when house prices were dipping. And I'd essentially won the lottery 6 times in a row to get into a position where I could fucking just afford a house that in 6 months would have been way out of my price range. And then since then, it's just been an uphill battle to try and continually make enough money to pay the mortgage that was like going up every couple of months, right? And I look at all of my peers, or not my peers, but like people my age, and I'm like, dude, it's impossible to buy a house on like a normal fucking income in Australia. And like if I didn't have one, I'd be like, why the fuck would I care about house prices crashing? That's a good thing. That was my headspace before I got one. And even now that I have one, it's like, I mean, I don't give a fuck if the value of my property goes down because I've got one. I live in it. You know, it would suck because I would be paying a higher mortgage than other people around me would be paying their rent, because if property prices went down, so would rent. But then also I understand that, like, well, mortgage should be higher than rent because I am buying the house. The renter is renting the house. It's pretty fucking absurd to me that, like, before I got into health trouble, right? It would have been, and you know, and really it still is. It is so much easier in the system that we have right now for me to buy my second home than it is for anyone to buy their first. Because that's how the system in Australia is fucking set up. Where, like, I don't even really need to make a lot of money to put down on a house, because I can just kind of use some of the equity in my home and use that, like imaginary money that doesn't fucking exist, to be like, oh yeah, I'll buy my next house by spending my bathroom on it. And I have a way higher chance at buying my second, third, fourth, and fifth home than anyone in the country has of buying their first. Because of how the system works. And I don't know how to fix that. And I'm not planning on becoming a fucking property mogul. I'm just trying to say, like, it's like as soon as I bought my first, all of the real estate agents that were involved in the sale of this one are like giving me their card and being like, I'm this guy, I will help you buy your second. Because they know that once you get the first, it's way easier to get the second, third, fourth, fifth, so on and so forth. And then you have people that own fucking 25 houses and they're paying the mortgage of that with the rental income of that. Like when I got into big trouble, a serious consideration of mine was like, okay, well, maybe I move back to my parents' place and just rent out my house. And if I really can't pay the mortgage while I'm recovering from the surgeries, I don't want to fucking lose this house, because I understand that it's likely that I'll never get back into the property market. Or at least won't for a really long time unless I become ballistically successful, which is not an option for most people that have salary jobs and families, right? So, and I remember just thinking, like, man, it's fucking absurd to me that I could, like, really, like, worst case scenario for me is I'll just move back to my parents and, like, someone else will pay my mortgage. So, like, from the perspective of a homeowner who's not planning on becoming a fucking property investor, even I don't give a fuck if property prices crashed 50%. I'd probably be like, oh, cool, now Australian families can afford to fucking rent homes or buy homes. Because at the moment, it's just investors and people like me who like won the lottery to buy their first home can then fucking spin the equity into that house into buying a second, and the equity from that house buys a third, and all these other people pay the mortgages on it, because if I get stuck and I can't pay my mortgage, I can just raise my rent to a certain degree. So, like, when all these people, like, I saw one person being like, oh yeah, all these people who voted for Trump are fucking idiots because now the economy's crashing, and look how stupid they are. They're actually celebrating that the economy's crashing. They're celebrating that the price of everything is going down. And then they're, showing people that are celebrating the price of, but like people who don't have any fucking assets, don't have any savings, they don't have anything. Like their only shot at making money is everything fucking crashing. The most money, I mean, that's how I got a house, right? I was a person that had essentially next to zero chance at buying a house. I was only able to get into this fucking rig system because a virus tanked the global economy, and I was fortunate enough to work in a relatively unaffected industry so I could buy the dip. The only reason I have this house is probably because investors all across the world lost many of their rental properties because stocks number go down. So I feel like I understand this like nihilistic opinion that a lot of people have, which is like, why the fuck do I care about the economy going well? I'm poor and I always will be unless something drastically changes. Because, I mean, even from an Australian perspective, like, I think about how fucking lucky I am to have to own this place all the time. Because, when I got really sick, I didn't pay my mortgage for months. If I lived in a rental, I just would have been evicted. But because I owned it, the bank was lenient with me and was like, well, pay us back when you can. Like renters don't get to do that. They just become homeless. Even though, say I'm a landlord, right? And my fucking person renting the home can't pay the mortgage for a couple of months because they've gone through a medical emergency or whatever, and they're not paying their rent. So therefore, I'm not paying my mortgage. I could have, like, if I was renting to me and he got sick, and therefore the mortgage didn't get paid for 5 months, I could have just ridden that and been like, oh, well, the bank's going to let me not pay the mortgage for a few months, so I can not let this guy pay the rent for a few months while he's going through some shit. But that doesn't happen for renters because property is seen as an investment for some fucking reason when it should just be for like people to live in. And I understand that they like there is I don't want to demonize people who have rental properties because I think properties for rent do serve a very important purpose because, so many people don't live in one place for their entire life, or they work for 6 months here, 6 months there. People who travel, like rental properties serve a very important role. But like, and I'm speaking mostly from an Australian perspective, it seems like our entire fucking country's economy and the way to retire is entirely based on buying as many properties as you can, which means that politicians have to do everything that they can to make sure that rental properties don't go down. And so as a young person, I mean, this was my view. I was like, okay, well, buying a house is fucking impossible for me. So why do I care if property prices are high or not? Like, how would that actually affect me if, boomers who own 6 properties had to sell 4 of them because rent went down so they couldn't pay the mortgage that really renters shouldn't be paying? Like, if I bought a house and rental income wasn't enough to cover the mortgage, that's fine because I own the fucking house and I get the asset. So I should probably put in a little bit. I don't know. I just think that like this tariff situation is like, yeah, probably a bad idea. I mean, I hope it works. I hope that manufacturing comes back to the States. Even if things get more expensive, that would eliminate a lot of fucking child labor that is going on, right? So that's a good thing globally for the world, is if manufacturing for shit that doesn't need to be made in China and India and Bangladesh, if that can go back to Western and more developed countries, that is like a moral objective good. How possible that is, who fucking knows? But like, I understand when people who don't have money, because, you know, I didn't come from money, right? So like, my parents, for example, if the property value of their house tanked fucking 80%, they still live in it. You know, they're not moving. So it's not real for someone who just owns one house. That's not a real consequence. Exactly, right? That's a consequence for people that own 2, 20, 50 homes and apartment buildings and shit like that. So like, when people are like, oh, these fucking stupid poor people from red rural states celebrating these tariffs, they don't know that it's going to tank fucking everything. And it's like, why do I care about the price of Tesla's shares? I don't own any. I don't give a fuck. I can't buy a house. I'm on minimum wage. I can't afford to rent. I hope house prices crash. That will make my life better. Now, of course, the flip side to that is, if you play that game too much, you end up with the Great Depression, and now no one has jobs or food. So it's definitely a balancing act. But like, I feel like, at least in Australia, houses shouldn't be $1 million fucking dollars when wages haven't kept up. There should not be queues of hundreds of people lining up for rental properties. And, you know, you see like politicians just outright saying, we don't want house prices to go down. And it's like, okay, cool. What the fuck are you doing about wages then? Like, something has to go down or up. And it feels like the only commitment from Australian politicians is to keep house prices where they are, which is like steadily going up and up and up and up. And then there's seemingly no plan for fucking wages at all. And absolutely nowhere near enough new houses are being built. But immigration numbers are being kept where they are. And I'm fine with immigration. Immigration is incredibly important. But if you're bringing a fuckload of people in and building not enough houses, you either need to lower the amount of people that are coming in, or skyrocket the amount of houses that are being built. There seems to be absolutely no commitment from either party to build those extra houses that are needed. So liberals are like, oh, we're going to lower immigration a little bit, but it's still really high. Labor's like, no, immigration is really important for the economy, which is true, but they're like, we need to build more, and they're not fucking building more. They've been saying that for my entire fucking life. And now I live in a world where I almost lost my fucking house because interest rates went ballistic, and so did the price of fucking food. So I had one health emergency and almost lost my house, and knew without a shadow of a doubt that if that happened, I would not buy another fucking house potentially ever. And now I'm in this like state where it's like, I have to fucking make heaps more money than I used to have to make when I bought the house, just for the privilege of not fucking losing it. Just when I thought getting the house was hard enough, now I'm in a battle to keep it. And there seems to be absolutely no solution for people like me. And I'm so fucking thankful for you guys and for the position that I'm in and the industry that I work in, where like it's incredibly hard to do, but like, you know, we've all seen YouTubers. Theoretically, I could be making $5 million a year just posting YouTube videos if something crazy happened. You know, I don't think that's going to happen, but I do work in an industry where if I really put my mind to it, with the support of you guys, the people that support my fucking dream, I can make more money than I was making, is what I'm trying to say, because I run my own business, right? But if I was on a salary, you know, I would have lost this house 10 times over. I just would have been fucked. I would have been like, okay, well, I need to get an extra, I need to find a new job and get a giant pay rise, or I'm fucked. And I think that so many people in Australia, but maybe even more so in America, are just in that position where they're just fucked. They're in a position where it's like, well, it's not realistic for me to like put my head to the grindstone and just figure out a way to make more money. That's not a realistic solution to someone who works a full-time job, has children, and has a partner that works a full-time job as well, or stays home to look after the kids, or is ill, or whatever. I feel like so many regular people are just sitting with no savings, no investments. They're paying unbelievably high rent and grocery prices. And it's like, yeah, why the fuck do they care about the stock market going down? Why the fuck would they care about their landlord who owns 20 properties jumping off a fucking building because he's losing all of them? It's like, at the very least with property prices, surely them going down 50% is like a good thing for most people. Like the average person, and I'm talking long term, not like in the short term, there'll be pain, but like, you know what I mean? Like if my house just all of a sudden dropped 50% in value, that would be really shit for about, you know, like 10 years for me, because I'd be paying this huge mortgage on a house that was nowhere near worth what I'm paying. But over 20 years, it would then catch back up again. And do you see what I'm saying? Like in the long view, because I would be living here and not planning on selling it because I'm not some fucking investor or property developer. I don't know. Am I rambling? I probably am. I'm so fucking tired, dude. Been doing these shows, and I feel like I don't have any... Is this interesting? Am I making any sense, or am I just fucking rambling and talking horse shit? I don't know. I just think that there's this weird thing of like people just, in Australia, there's this fucking disease that people get, that when they buy a house, they're like, I need the value of my house to go up, and I need another. And because here's the thing, right? Say I'm a property investor, okay? And all my mates are property investors, and there's a particular suburb that's really going up in price, right? And if I bid a fuckload of money, and then my mate bids a fuckload of money, and then my mate bids a fuckload of money, and then, you know, the young family, the guy who worked really hard and the wife who worked really hard, who's pregnant and left her job to take care of the kids, they bid a fuckload of money. And then me and my mates outbid them, and I lose the house to my mate who's an investor who paid way over the value. I'm not upset, right? The fucking young family is devastated because they really liked the house and they wanted to raise a family there. So they're cut because they didn't get the house. I'm not mad that I didn't get the house because I own the house around the corner, right? And my mate just fucking bought the house around the corner from my property for $300,000 more than what I paid for it. So now that house around the corner magically goes up $300,000 in value. And then I buy the one around the corner for $100,000 over that. Now my mate's house is worth more, and so is my other one. So it's like investors are incentivized to just keep paying more and more and more and more for houses than they paid for the last one, then they paid for the last one, then they paid for the last one. Because every house they buy for significantly more than what they paid for their previous house brings the previous house up in value as a whole. So it's like it's a fucking disease where like you get one house and you're like, fuck, I want another house and I want to pay more. Because I can, because I'm just using the equity that I've unlocked in my original house. And, you know, worst case scenario, I stretch myself too thin. I sell the second house for like slightly more than what I paid for it. And now my original house is worth more again. And I'm sweet. Anyway, this is economics with Spears and why the world's fucked. I don't, and you know what? I don't know what the solution to this is. This is what we come to Spearhead Sundays for. It's all problems, no solutions. I feel like the solution is to build a fuckload more houses so that we can, because I feel like the immigration thing is like a really interesting thing, because with immigration, you're going to have a lot of people that are very mobile people. I'm talking like legal immigration, not refugees and all that kind of stuff. Legal immigration. So I'm an aspiring immigrant. I want to move to America. When I go to America, like I will be moving to America because I have become quite successful and I'm making a lot of money. So wherever I go, end up, you know, hopefully, likely, I won't have the same money issues that people do that I'm moving into their neighborhood. So like I might fucking, you know, just like gentrify the area, me doing that. That's what legal immigration does. That's what you want legal immigration to do, is to just raise the living standard of everything around where they move into. But the thing is, if you do that too much, now the people that already live in the country, if they don't have enough money to compete with the immigrants that are coming in, now they're struggling. And the only solution to that is to build more houses to bring the cost of housing down. But we're not doing that. We're just like, and then what ends up happening is then people don't have children because they can't afford to have children, or they don't want to have children if they're unsure about where they're going to live because they're not sure if they're going to be able to pay rent, and they don't want to pay rent at all. If you're raising a fucking family, you want to be paying a mortgage. You want to know where you're going to live forever, because raising a kid when you're paying rent is like anxiety inducing, because if the fucking landlord wants to sell the house, now you got to pull your kid out of school. Moves to a completely different suburb. You know, who knows what'll happen? If you own a house, you know where you're going to live for the next 20 years because you're going to be working yourself to death to pay for the rising interest rates. So, but then when people stop having kids because they can't afford to fucking buy a house, now to ensure the survival of the economy, you got to bring in more immigrants. And then it's like you're stuck in this death spiral where people who live here, including the children of those immigrants that you brought in, can't afford to buy houses, so they don't have children, so you got to bring in more immigrants, and then it's fucking, the house prices go up, immigration goes up, and no one has kids, and so the cycle fucking continues. I think that's the thing. I think like we really need to tell politicians, it's like, look, obviously we need immigration, but we obviously need housing to keep up with the amount of people coming in, and so that people who are already here have a place to raise kids and have a family in areas they can afford. And if we can't do that, then we got to slow down the immigration, build more houses, or figure out something else to make housing affordable. Because if we don't do either of those things, that's how you get like just apathetic, nihilistic, disaffected young people who don't give a fuck about the economy, about working hard at all. Because that's another thing, dude. Like, you know, I'm in a position where I would do my job for nothing. I love it. Like, I'm a comedian. It's who I am at my core. I did do this job for fucking years and years and years from the bedroom in my parents' house for fucking no money because I loved it, right? And I would have been comfortable to do that for my whole life. I mean, I did when I was in a real bad spot. I went back to my fucking parents' house and I did it from there. You know? And I would be content to do that. But I'm not most people, and I certainly am not the type of person that keeps the country going. I hopefully entertain the people that keep the country going. And the people who keep the country going are just normal people who work fucking jobs and go to work every day. And what those people need and deserve is enough money and free time to fucking enjoy their life and live it with dignity. And I think that in so many places in the world, they are already in a place, they're already in a position where that's impossible. They don't get dignity. They don't get enough money. They just work and then they sleep and then they work and then they sleep and they somehow can't afford, to go to the doctor. Right? And I don't think Australia is in that point yet. But I think that we're heading for that if we don't do something. We can't be in a position where 18-year-olds look at millennials and go, oh, well, they can't buy a house. I'm fucked. Why try? Already these fucking Zoomers can't read. You really want them to stop dreaming? You don't want a bunch of angry, apathetic, nihilistic illiterates on your hands, all right? Because when the Civil War happens, if you start dropping pamphlets about why they should surrender, they can't fucking read them. Obviously, I don't think we're headed for civil war, but I think there's a lot of frustration, especially from young people, and I empathize heaps, and I share so many of I paid for groceries for me. Obviously, I'm a big person, but I bought a week's worth of groceries of like good, healthy food, meat, fruit, vegetables. I spent almost fucking $200 on a week worth of food for one person. I remember when I was 18, that would have been like $70. And, I'm in a position where I run a business, so, and things are, I'm not fucking killing it, but I'm building something that hopefully will be huge. It's not there yet, but hopefully it will be. If I was just in call center jobs or fucking working behind the scenes in entertainment or doing any sort of normal fucking real job, carpentry, a trade, I would just be like, oh, well, I guess I will eat bad food then. Food that's bad for me. Now I feel shit. Now I feel sick. Now I feel tired. Now it's even harder for me to work. There's so many things that are stacked up against young people. My mum and my dad, mum's a hairdresser, dad's a carpenter. When they bought their house younger than me. That's not possible now. You can't buy a house on a hairdresser and a carpenter's salary a few years into your relationship. That's not reality anymore. That is impossible. And that's a real fucking problem because those people run the world. Carpenters and hairdressers and electricians and people who do real fucking jobs, Not me. Where I'm in like a unbelievably blessed industry where obviously it's almost impossible to make any money at all. But theoretically, the job that I'm doing right now, talking to you, there are people doing this exact job that I'm doing, expending no more effort, but instead of being able to pay for food and their mortgage, they're making millions of dollars a month. Like, what I'm saying is that's my potential. So that's why when I got into trouble, I was able to figure it out and save myself thanks to the amazing support of you and the network that I've built and this thing. And I'm repeating myself and talking in circles. But I don't know why I decided to talk about this. But I feel that it's important with the Australian election coming up. I just think that it's stuff that we should all really fucking think about. Is like, who do we want running our country? It's got to be people who have a plan for young people, because young people are the country. And I think that right now, every single politician is like, whatever ideas we have, we fucking promise that house prices will keep going up. And I am just not sure that's how a country should be run. Like, if that's what our economy is running on, maybe it does need to fucking burn down and crumble, because that's probably not what the backbone of an economy should be. Housing as investment. That's probably not a good idea.